Discover the incredible, heartwarming truths hidden in a knight's 24-hour fight for survival. Kyle Johnson stood on the edge of his driveway, tools in hand, tall enough to look over the fence that divided his yard from the world beyond. Maplewood was a small town where neighbors knew each other's names and kids rode bikes until dusk. For years, he'd been the humble handyman, always ready to lend a hand. But once, he had dreams of standing in front of a classroom, imparting wisdom and inspiring young minds. Now, at 42, he fought a different battle, one that challenged his very identity as a father, husband, and friend. His wife, Michelle, a dedicated school nurse, supported him with unwavering strength. Together, they raised their bright daughter, Sophie, who struggled to navigate the murky waters of high school. Sophie wore her heart on her sleeve and constantly searched for her place, grasping at dreams that felt just out of reach. As Kyle watched her, an ache settled in his chest, a mixture of hope and helplessness. His own father, a Vietnam veteran, had taught him perseverance, but with every challenge thrown their way, he felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier. Then, the storm hit. A local news story broke about missing funds that were meant for their beloved schools. It was too long before the whispers started, a cacophony of doubt and betrayal that rippled through Maplewood. When Kyle's name surfaced, accusations twisted around him like a noose. Would he really? They asked, eyes wide and fingers pointed. His heart raced as nightmares danced in his mind, his small world trembled on the brink of collapse. As Kyle stepped into the grocery store, the air thickened. Familiar faces morphed into strangers. He felt the weight of their gazes, the silent judgment echoing louder than anything he'd ever known. How could this happen? He thought, desperately searching for a hint of understanding. Was his character all but erased by hungry tongues? Back at home, Sophie struggled under the burden of teenage cruelty. "They think you're a thief, Dad," she cried, tears brimming in her eyes. Michelle, usually the rock, grappled with her worries, each ounce of uncertainty carving deeper lines into her face. Even his father, normally steadfast, showed cracks of fragility, a man trapped in both memories of valor and the labyrinth of family ties. Kyle's resolve hardened. He wouldn't go down without a fight. Stepping onto the town council floor felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. He squared his shoulders, remembering lessons from a grandfather who cherished honor above all. "I will clear my name," he told himself fiercely. "For my family, for Sophie." Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the clock ticked, events spiraled out of control. Kyle Dove, determined to unravel the mystery not just for himself but for the people of Maplewood who stood by him. Deeper into the mess, a distant relative appeared with stunning revelations, each bombshell shaking his foundation and forcing Kyle to confront fears he had long buried. Choices loomed. Would he go down fighting? Could he find the truth before it slipped through his fingers like sand? In the final moments of that tumultuous day, Kyle took a deep breath and steadied himself. Loyalty, love, and justice knitted together in the tapestry of his heart. With the future of his family and their community hanging in the balance, he knew that embracing the fight meant more than redemption, it meant facing his own doubts head-on. The storm raged on, but deep down, he felt a flicker of hope sparking inside him. What truth awaited? Would it be enough to overturn the tide of betrayal? The following morning, Kyle awoke to the sound of rain drumming against the roof. It felt like the heavens were weeping, mirroring his own turbulent emotions. He dragged himself out of bed and glanced at Sophie, who was still lost in her dreams, oblivious to the storm brewing outside and the chaos unfolding within their lives. Downstairs, Michelle was quietly sipping her coffee. The warmth of her smile welcomed him, but there was unease in her eyes and unspoken worry that echoed the thoughts in his own mind. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked, her voice soft yet laced with tension. "Not much," he admitted, taking a seat. "But I've got to keep moving. I need to figure this out." The weight of his words hung in the air, heavy with responsibility and resolve. As he stared out the window, the storm lifted momentarily, revealing glimpses of sunlight fighting to break through the clouds. He took a deep breath, drawing strength from the sight. Today was not just any day, it was the day of the town council meeting. The stakes were higher than ever, and he felt the pressure squeezing tighter around him. At the kitchen table, Sophie finally emerged from her daze, rubbing her eyes. "Are you really going to face them, Dad?" she asked, voice trembling slightly. It was a question that carried the weight of their entire family's fear and hope. "I have to," he replied, holding her gaze. He wanted to reassure her, to be the pillar of strength she believed he could be. "I want to let them define who I am or what I stand for." Time rushed forward, and soon Kyle found himself at the town hall, surrounded by familiar faces twisted into expressions of suspicion and distrust. He could feel their eyes drilling into him like needles. Swallowing hard, he stepped into the room filled with people ready for a verdict, the air pregnant with anticipation. Moments felt like hours as he awaited his turn to speak. When finally called, he rose, heart pounding like a wild drum. "I know what you've been hearing," he began, voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "But I assure you I am not what they say." He saw nods from a few friends in the crowd but also witnessed hardened expressions among others. He shared his side of the story, detailing the work he'd done for the schools and how he'd dedicated his life to the community they had built together. Each word he spoke was infused with passion, yet he felt a sliver of doubt creeping in, a fear that no matter how loud he made his case, it might not penetrate the walls of disbelief. Just as he thought he was gaining traction, a voice from the back of the room called out, "You can't just brush this under the rug, Kyle." Kyle turned, eyes hardening. It was someone he used to call a friend. "I'm not trying to. I just want the truth to come out." The tension escalated, people murmuring amongst themselves. Kyle's heart raced. This confrontation wasn't just about him anymore. It was about Sophie, Michelle, and everything they stood for. The meeting dragged on, accusations and promises colliding like thunder and lightning. When it finally ended, he felt the weight of unfinished business heavy on his shoulders. He stepped outside to catch his breath, the fresh air a bittersweet relief against the storm still brewing within him. Just then, Michelle found him, her expression a mix of pride and worry. "You did well," she assured him, but he could see the uncertainty in her eyes. "Enough to change their minds?" he asked, the hope in his voice wavering. She didn't reply right away, scanning the horizon as if seeking an answer in the clouds. Then, with a gentle squeeze of his hand, she said, "Sometimes, it takes more than one battle to reclaim your honor." And deep down, Kyle knew she was right. The fight wasn't over. As the sun sank low in the sky, casting a golden hue across the dark clouds, the faintest outline of a storm cloud draped a shadow over Maplewood, and the reality settled in. Who were his true allies in this fight? And what secrets were still lurking, waiting to be uncovered? The following days felt like an eternity as Kyle replayed the town hall meeting in his head. Each accusation echoed in his mind, the harsh whispers blending with the rhythm of the rain against the windows. The storm outside was relentless, a mirror to the turmoil swirling within him. Sophie remained quiet, her eyes reflecting a mix of concern and admiration. She tried to be brave, asking him about the challenges he faced at the council, but Kyle could see the shadow of uncertainty in her gaze. He wished he could shield her from it all, wrap her in a bubble of safety that existed only in his dreams. Every time she looked up at him, he felt the weight of his responsibilities pressing harder against his chest. One evening, while they were gathered in the living room, the flickering lights caught his eye. He watched as Sophie drew pictures, her small hands moving with a carefree spirit that seemed so far removed from the heaviness in his heart. He couldn't help but smile, hoping to instill some strength in her through his own courage. "What do you think I should do next?" he asked, wanting to hear her innocent take. needing her light to guide him. "You'll figure it out, Dad." "You always do," she replied, her small voice full of trust and belief. But deep inside, Kyle felt a creeping doubt. How was he supposed to find a way to win back the trust of the people? He needed more than just passion, he needed proof, allies, something that would silence the waves of dissent crashing against him. Then, out of the blue, a knock sounded at the door in the dead of night. It startled them all, and Kyle exchanged a worried glance with Michelle. Who could that be, he wondered aloud. Stepping cautiously to the door, he opened it to find an unexpected visitor, Jonas, the town librarian, a man he respected more than most. The sight of Jonas standing there, drenched from the rain, sent a chill down Kyle's spine. "Can we talk?" Jonas asked, urgency in his voice. After ushering him inside, Kyle closed the door, glancing worriedly at Sophie, who had abruptly stopped drawing and was now peering at the two men. "What is it?" Kyle asked, hoping it was good news. "I have something that could help your case," Jonas said, shaking off water. "I didn't want to believe the rumors. These past weeks, I've been digging. There's more to the story than anyone knows." Kyle's heart raced. "What do you mean?" Jonas hesitated, running a hand through his wet hair. "There's evidence, Kyle. Evidence that could shift the narrative. But we need to act quickly. People are scared, and they'll believe what they want unless we show them the truth." Kyle felt a surge of hope mixed with apprehension. The truth? Was it worth chasing? What do we need to do? Encouraging Sophie to return to her drawing, Kyle focused on Jonas as he outlined the plan. They discussed a strategy to gather the evidence, a risky endeavor that felt like stepping into unknown waters. As Jonas laid out the information, Kyle realized this wasn't just about proving his innocence, it was about standing up for everything he believed in. He felt the fire reigniting. But was he ready to face whatever lay ahead? Would the truth unveil allies or enemies? As night deepened, the storm outside raged on, but Kyle felt a flicker of determination kindling within him, ready to fight for his family and his place in Maplewood. However, he knew he would have to confront his fears head-on to uncover what was hidden in the shadows. What truths lurked beneath the surface, waiting to be exposed? And could they finally bring hope back to his family? The next morning, sunlight struggled to break through the remnants of the storm. Kyle stood by the kitchen window, absorbed in thought. The raindrops glistening on the outside seemed to echo the battle inside him. He had spent the night wrestling with visions of hope and trepidation, anxiously waiting for the day ahead. Sophie sat at the kitchen table, immersed in her drawings again, occasionally looking up to check on him. Her innocence captivated him. She held the strength he needed, a tiny beacon shining brightly against the turbulence. "Dad?" Sophie's voice brought him back. "Can we go to the park today?" Kyle forced a smile. "Maybe later. I have some important stuff to take care of first." Sophie studied his face, her brows knitting together. "Is it about the meeting?" He nodded. "Yeah, something like that." "I believe in you," she said, returning to her art, filling the page with vibrant colors that spoke of unspoken dreams. He closed his eyes, savoring her words. They settled in his heart like warm sunlight, a reminder of why he needed to push forward. Fortunately, he had Jonas's plan. If they could just gather the evidence he needed, maybe just maybe he could turn the tide. As the morning wore on, he checked in with Jonas. They had agreed to meet at the library where the atmosphere was filled with books and untold stories. Kyle grabbed his coat, resolved to muster the courage he felt slipping between his fingers. Arriving at the library, the familiar scent of aged paper and hardwood soothed him. Jonas was there, waiting at a table in the corner, surrounded by stacks of books. "I know this is risky," Kyle began, scanning the library for prying eyes. "What have you found?" "Let's start with the annual reports," Jonas said, the excitement in his voice bubble-wrapped in urgency. "They don't add up." I found discrepancies in the funding for the community projects, a pattern of misallocation that could suggest something far more sinister. Kyle felt his heart pounding. Misallocation? We need proof everyone can see, he said, fingers tapping nervously on the table. Have you found anything solid? Jonas slid him a folder loaded with documents. The town council's financial records show that several funds were diverted to accounts controlled by a select few people who claim to have the town's best interest at heart. The implications were staggering. Anger and determination coursed through him like electricity. We need to confront them, Kyle declared. We can't let this stand. We need to rally the community and show them what's really happening. Jonas nodded, but the unease was evident on his face. With the mood around town, they might not appreciate being confronted. You have to tread carefully. There are people who will fight back. The weight of his words landed heavily on Kyle's shoulders. Did he want to open a can of worms? Yet, deep down, he knew he had to take this risk for the sake of Sophie and everyone in Maplewood. Let us expose the truth, he said firmly, determination edging out uncertainty. We have to be the voice for those left unheard. Back at home, Kyle gathered Sophie for a big hug. I need your help, buddy. We might be doing something important for everyone. Can you handle that? She nodded, her big eyes full of resolve. I can, Dad. I want to help. As he prepared for the confrontation ahead, adrenaline surged through him, mixed with the tremors of fear. Where would this path lead? More importantly, who would stand with him? And just as the courage began to settle in, a new thought crept in. What if unveiling the truth meant painful secrets would spill into the open, changing everything he thought he understood about his community? Was he ready for whatever storm was about to break? The morning shadows still lingered when Kyle and Sophie arrived at the park. The air felt fresh, washed clean by last night's downpour. Sophie dashed ahead, her laughter ringing like little bells, breaking through Kyle's mounting anxiety. She was his reminder of the innocence worth fighting for. Look at this! Sophie exclaimed, kneeling by a puddle. She splashed her hands, creating shimmering droplets in the golden morning light. Kyle couldn't help but smile, yet the tightness in his chest wouldn't ease. Today was supposed to be a day of community, of standing tall against the darkness inside Maplewood. Sophie's joy was bright, but it felt at odds with the storm brewing within him. He settled on a nearby bench, watching her as she found joy in the simplest things. I wish I had your energy, he muttered, leaning back and taking a deep breath. Moments later, as if sensing his distraction, Sophie bounded back to him. What's wrong, Dad? Are you thinking about the meeting? Yeah, he said quietly, forcing himself to shake off the clouds of worry. But I believe we can do this if we work together. I'll be right by your side, Sophie promised, raising her tiny fists in a show of strength. Encouraged, Kyle nodded. All right. Let us grab some ice cream and head home. We've got work to do. The ice cream truck blared its cheerful tune, and Sophie's eyes lit up. She picked a double scoop, chocolate and vanilla, and Kyle got a cone to go along with it. It felt like a small victory, a moment stolen from the weight of what lay ahead. As they walked home, Kyle's thoughts drifted back to the evidence Jonas had shared. Would the people understand his convictions? Or would he face hostility? With the town divided, every whisper and glance could turn dangerous. Dad, Sophie's voice pierced his thoughts like a beam of light. When we talk to everyone, can we tell them it's going to be okay? A lump formed in his throat. We'll tell them the truth, honey. That's the first step towards everything being okay. Just as they reached the front porch, Kyle's phone buzzed. It was a message from Jonas, we need to meet again. Something has come up. The word urgent echoed in his mind as he replied, trying to keep his voice calm. Okay, where? He exchanged glances with Sophie, her innocent smile suddenly feeling like a fragility he had to protect even more fiercely. Back at the library. Shit's getting serious, Jonas replied. Kyle's stomach dropped. He glanced at Sophie. Looks like we have to move fast. Can I come? She asked, eyes wide as she hoped for more adventure today. No, Kyle said, kneeling down to meet her level. I need you to stay here. Can you keep drawing? You'll be my secret weapon. Sophie frowned slightly but nodded. I'll make you the best picture ever. With that, Kyle rushed back inside, grabbing his coat and keys. The sunlight poured through the windows, but he couldn't shake the shadow of unease that loomed over this fight for truth. As he made his way to the library, he couldn't help but wonder what new revelations awaited him. What was Jonas hiding? What would change when they revealed the truth? The anticipation buzzed through him, tightly intertwined with concern. Had he prepared enough for the battles ahead, or was today only the beginning of the storm? Would he find allies or opposition? Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that the future tightened like a coiled spring. The answers he sought felt closer, yet so far away. As he walked into the library, ready for whatever lay ahead, one question loomed above all: would uncovering the town's truth set them free, or expose scars that would break them all? The library was quiet when Kyle stepped inside, the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights giving it an otherworldly feel. Rows of books stood like sentinels, each spine a silent witness to Maplewood's secrets. He made his way to the meeting room, gripping his phone tightly, feeling the weight of every step. Jonas was already there, leaning against the table, arms crossed. His brow was furrowed, and a tension filled the air, almost palpable. Kyle, he greeted, but his tone lacked the usual warmth. What is going on? Kyle asked, the gravity in his voice matching the seriousness in Jonas's eyes. I think we might have a leak, Jonas replied, pushing away from the table. Someone is onto us. Kyle felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? There are whispers, people talking about our plans. If they find out what we've gathered, we could be in real trouble, Jonas said, lowering his voice as if the walls themselves had ears. Who? Kyle asked, scanning the room as though the walls might offer up answers. Jonas shook his head. Not sure yet. Just rumors. But I've seen figures lurking in the shadows, catching snippets of our conversations. The thought twisted in Kyle's gut. He pictured Sophie, her artful confidence, and the dawning realization that the battle to protect her innocence was escalating. What's our next move? We need to act fast. Jonas paced, his thoughts racing. Tonight, we gather our strongest supporters. We can't let fear rule us. We won't give in to intimidation. Kyle wanted to believe that, but doubt clawed at him. What if they turn on us? A divided town can become a dangerous place. Jonas stopped, fixing Kyle with a steady gaze. That's exactly why we need to come out fighting. United. If we stay silent now, we'll lose everything. Kyle inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing on his chest. His mind flashed to Sophie, waiting with markers in hand, her faith unwavering. Okay, but we need to be strategic. It's not just about voicing our truths. We have to ensure people feel safe enough to listen. Jonas nodded, his demeanor softening. We can call a town meeting. Engage everyone, show them what's at stake. The idea was promising, but anxiety bubbled within Kyle still. What if we expose ourselves too soon? We need those who support the right cause. Then we angle it right. Jonas pressed his hands flat against the table, determination lighting up his features. Let us appeal to the heart of the community, the good they want to protect. As they hammered out a plan, a small wave of hope seeped into Kyle's heart. Maybe this was what they needed, a moment that could unite the fractured town. But somewhere in the back of his mind lingered the nagging thought of Sophie. I have to go, Jonas, Kyle said suddenly, glancing at his watch. I can't keep her waiting any longer. I'll pull together what I can and spread the word. Be careful, Jonas warned as they both stood and headed toward the door. If someone's watching, make sure they don't see you coming. Kyle nodded, a knot tightening in his stomach as he stepped into the cool air outside. Back at home, he found Sophie sprawled on the floor with her art supplies, lost in creating a world where heroes always triumphed over darkness. He couldn't help but feel a warmth wash over him. "How's my secret weapon?" he asked, crouching beside her. "Almost done." She grinned, eyes sparkling, a touch of chaos in the colorful scribbles. "Are we going to save the world today, Dad?" "We're going to try," he said, ruffling her hair, remembering the urgency of what lay ahead. But as he watched her draw, the nagging thought returned. Was he leading her unknowingly into a dangerous mission? Did she deserve that weight? Before he could spiral into worry, she held up the picture, a vibrant depiction of a knight defending a village. "And this knight is you, Dad." The image struck him, igniting an unfamiliar fire within heroism, not just for the sake of fighting, but for the love that drove it. But just then, a loud crash outside interrupted the moment. Kyle's heart sank. This couldn't be good. He rushed to the window. "What is happening?" Sophie asked, raising an eyebrow in confusion. Kyle's pulse quickened as he looked out. A small crowd was gathering, voices rising in anxious tones. The storm they'd been trying to confront was beginning to manifest in front of their very eyes. The real battle was about to begin. Would they rise together, or would the fear pull them apart? In the heart of the chaos, a revelation loomed just out of reach. Sometimes, heroes aren't the ones charging forward but those willing to stand firmly in the storm and believe. As the shouts echoed in the distance, Kyle turned to Sophie, determination swelling in his chest. He knew he had to make a choice to shield her from this terrifying world or to show her that the fight for truth was worth every risk. That decision could change everything. What would he choose? Kyle's heart thudded in his chest as he watched the chaos unfold outside. He pulled away from the window, glancing back at Sophie, who was still seated on the floor, oblivious to the anxious tension in the air. Her world was still vibrant, filled with colors and dreams where knights always prevailed, and he couldn't help but admire that innocence. "Stay here," he said firmly, not wanting to frighten her. He could feel the gravity of the moment pulling at him, urging him to move fast. "Dad, wait!" Sophie called after him, her little voice filled with urgency. "What is going on?" Instead of answering, he stepped out into the evening air. The street was alive with restless energy, growing louder by the second. Neighboring families were emerging from their homes, wide-eyed and unsettled. Faces once familiar now skated around with uncertainty. Kyle pushed through the gathering crowd, determined to stay focused. He needed answers. "Did you hear that crash?" Someone shouted, fear lacing their tone. "What is happening?" Kyle tried to keep his own fear at bay. He caught a glimpse of a group of teenagers throwing rocks at a street lamp, their laughter mingling with shouts of disbelief from adults trying to reason with them. This was spiraling fast. "Stop!" Kyle yelled, stepping forward. The group paused, attention snapping to him. The laughter faded, replaced by wary glances. "This isn't helping. We need to come together, not tear each other apart." His voice cut through the noise, and for a moment, the chaos around him silenced. A few faces softened, but Kyle was all too aware that the fear bubbling under the surface was an ever-present threat. "What is going on, Kyle?" A neighbor shouted, a hint of desperation in his voice. "We've heard whispers there's talk of division. Is it true?" There it was, the question that had been gnawing at Kyle since the library meeting. He took a deep breath, weighing his words as the murmurs shifted in the crowd. "Yes. But we can't let it break us." He paused, looking each person in the eye. "We've built this community together. We must stand united. If we let fear lead us, we'll lose everything we've fought for." But the crowd wasn't entirely on board. Doubts flickered in the eyes around him, and Kyle could sense the hesitation. Just then, a young woman stepped forward, arms crossed defiantly. What if we don't know who we can trust? It's not just rumors anymore, it's real. Kyle felt a weight in his chest. The fear that had been creeping into their lives was now openly acknowledged. Trust takes time, he replied, steadying his voice. But hiding isn't the answer. We need to face this together, to shed the darkness by illuminating the truth. A hush fell over the crowd, and Kyle saw some nods of agreement, but others remained stubbornly skeptical. He realized he had to make this personal. Look, if we really want to protect our families, our children, we need to know who they are. We can't with a wall in front of us. In that moment, he caught sight of Sophie peeking through the window, her small figure silhouetted against the glow of their home. She was watching. It struck him hard. She believed he was her knight. How could he let fear dictate what was right when he had a little girl who looked at him with such trust? A sudden commotion erupted behind him, a scuffle between two men, anger flaring like wildfire. Kyle instinctively stepped forward, separating them. No! He shouted, heart racing. This isn't us. We can't fight each other. In the flickering streetlight, Kyle felt the pulse of the crowd behind him, tension gripping the air. This was the moment to stand up, the moment to find strength among the cracks. A collective gasp rose as the truth settled over them. Would they choose unity, or let division tear them apart? With determination burning in his heart, Kyle adjusted his stance, not backing down from the surge of emotion surrounding him. It's time to decide, what do we stand for? Because whatever my choice is, I know what my daughter believes in. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, the shadows stretched longer, silently echoing the question that lingered in the crowd. Would they unite to protect what mattered most, or let the storm take them? Tomorrow would bring clarity, but for tonight, decisions loomed heavy in the air. Choices awaited. What path would he lead them down? Kyle stood in the growing twilight, the heat of the moment wrapping around him like a heavy cloak. Faces surged with uncertainty. He could feel the weight of expectations pressing down on him. In that fragile silence, he observed the shimmer of shared fear in their eyes. They were looking to him to show them the way, and despite that crushing pressure, he found a flicker of hope rising within him. The truth is, he said, his voice steady now, we're stronger together. Look at us. We're neighbors, friends. We've celebrated birthdays, mourned losses, and supported each other through hard times. We can't let shadows drive a wedge between us. He scanned the crowd, catching fleeting glimpses of familiar faces: the teacher from the elementary school, the baker whose pastries warmed their mornings, and the elderly couple from down the street who always waved hello. Each face told a story, rich with laughter and tears, moments woven together in a community fabric. Think of our kids, he urged, heart racing as he leaned forward slightly, searching for connection. What kind of world are we leaving them if we turn against each other? They look up to us to teach them strength and unity. A murmur of agreement mixed with uncertainty rippled through the crowd. Kyle took a step closer to the nearest family, their little girl clutching her stuffed bear, wide eyes looking from her parents to him. She reminded him so much of Sophie, and the sight ignited a fierce protectiveness within him. What if she had to face this division? No. They wouldn't let that happen. Just then, a deep voice rose from the back. But what if it's too late? What if the division's already taken root? The words hung heavy in the air, stirring the doubts that had been simmering beneath the surface. We can't let fear decide our fate. Kyle responded, his heart pumping stronger in his chest. Let us talk. Let us meet and discuss our fears. We'll uncover the truth together. I promise you this, he pointed fiercely at the faces surrounding him, we won't be divided by whispers or fear anymore. We'll be open with one another. There was a shift among the crowd. Some began to nod, others looked introspective, wrestling with the choice that lay ahead. He needed to push, however gently. We should gather tomorrow evening, right here. That way, we can share our stories directly, not through fear-fueled rumors. Let us meet as a family honestly. And I'll ensure it's safe. A woman stepped forward, her brow furrowed. And how do we know it won't just become another place for anger to spill over? By showing up, he replied, his conviction lifting his words. By showing our kids that this is what adults do when faced with challenges. We don't run away, we stand together. More murmurs of agreement encircled him now. Kyle felt a lift in the air as hope bloomed. The energy was palpable. Maybe this was the thread of unity they needed, the first step to stitch back the fabric of their community. Then, just as optimism began to settle, a loud crash echoed in the distance, breaking the fragile moment. These weren't just isolated skirmishes. What had initially appeared as chaos seemed to dim the light of unity he had ignited. Stay together. Kyle shouted, heart dropping. We need to, but before he could finish, he caught sight of the nearest group of teenagers seemingly rushing toward him, their faces grim and determined. What now? He thought, dread pooling in his stomach. Had they come looking to confront him? Or was something far worse at play? All around him, fear rippled again, quickly closing in. Kyle took a stabilizing breath. Tonight would decide everything. But how could he protect his community when the storm was only just beginning? Tomorrow must bring clarity, but now, uncertainty loomed once again. Would they all remain united in purpose, or would the darkness pull them back into division? Kyle's eyes darted as the group of teenagers approached, shadows of anxiety crossing their faces. They were usually carefree, full of laughter, but tonight, they wore the weight of the world. As they reached him, Kyle was struck by the urgency in their expressions. What is happening? He asked, fear creeping into his voice. One of the boys, Tommy, stepped forward, breathing hard as if he had run a marathon. There's a fight over on Maple Street. It's bad, Kyle. Like, real bad. We couldn't just watch it happen. Kyle's heart sank. Maple Street was where many of them lived, families he knew. What do you mean bad? There are groups from different sides. They've started throwing things. We couldn't even get close to break it up. It's like a war zone. Tommy looked around at the crowd, seeking a sign of strength. The crowd that had gathered now was a mix of fear and rising anger. Kyle felt the tension. Just a moment ago, there was hope, and now it felt like it was slipping away again. Listen, he shouted, hoping to keep their focus. We need to get there. We need to show we're all on the same side. If we don't do something now, it could get worse. How? Someone called from the back. By banding together everyone. We follow me, stand beside each other. We've proven we can come together before. Now, let us show them that we won't allow this to fracture us. A few more voices piped up in a hesitant agreement, and Kyle's heart surged with a mix of pride and determination. If they didn't act, they risked losing everything. Let us move, people. Right now. He commanded, and he led the way, his feet pounding the pavement as others fell in step behind him. It was a march fueled by fear but threaded with the need for unity. As they approached Maple Street, the sounds grew louder, yelling, crashing, a cacophony of chaos that felt like the world swirling out of control. When they arrived, Kyle was taken aback by the scene laid out before him. A group of people were clashing in the dim light, tempers flaring and insults flying like projectiles. It was everything he feared, a community torn apart. He squeezed through to the front, desperate to find a way to intervene. Everyone! Stop! He called, but his voice was drowned out by the uproar. He stepped closer, trying to catch the attention of those in the fray. Each swinging fist, each angry shout, made his pulse quicken. He needed to be the voice of reason, the bridge in this turbulent gap. Look at what we're doing. He yelled, his heart racing. Look at each other. We're better than this. We're family, neighbors. We can't let anger tear our lives apart. I've seen what happens when we're divided, and I won't stand for it. For a moment, the fighting paused. Eyes turned towards the frazzled figure of their neighbor, the very person they had seen just hours before, speaking unity. Kyle's heart sank as he noticed the doubt creeping in again among the agitated faces. But just then, behind him, a voice rang out. Sophie, his daughter, stepped forward, holding firmly to her stuffed bear and looking straight into the eyes of the fighters. My daddy says that friendship is stronger than fighting. Please, don't hurt each other. The crowd fell still, captivated by her innocent plea. The tension hung in the air like a taut wire. Kyle turned, his breath catching at the sight of his daughter. See? He said to the fighters. If she can ask for peace, if she believes in all of us, why can't we? As eyes softened, Kyle could sense a shift. But would it be enough to stem the tide of rage before it consumed them all? The anxious anticipation hung heavily as Kyle stood his ground, hope battling fear in his chest. What would it take to truly unite them when everything felt so fragile? Tomorrow would come, but right now, this moment held their fate in its hands. Would they rise from the ashes of conflict, or would division swallow them whole? Kyle felt the tension crackle in the air like static electricity. Sophie's innocent words hung there, a fragile thread in the boiling chaos. Please, don't hurt each other. It echoed around him, breaking the grip of anger that had ensnared so many. For a heartbeat, silence blanketed the scene. Then, the first ripple of uncertainty crossed the faces of those caught in the tide of rage. Some glanced at each other, hesitating. He took a step closer to Sophie, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. She looked up at him, her eyes wide, filled with a mixture of bravery and vulnerability. We can't let fear win. We're better together. He shouted, determination flooding his voice. A burly man stepped forward, muscles tense. Kyle recognized him, a former football star from high school who now owned a popular bar. You think this is easy? His voice cut, thick with disbelief, but Kyle could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. Trust me, Kyle replied, his own voice steadying. I know what it's like to feel alone, to feel people turning you against each other. But that can only last so long. What do we truly want for our families? For our kids? He scanned the crowd, hoping they felt the same pangs of uncertainty and anger threatening to boil over. Sophie, never letting go of her bear, chimed in once more, I want my friends to be happy. I want to play outside without being scared. Her small voice cut through the noise, landing like a pebble in still water, provoking ripples of shared humanity. A woman near the front gathered the courage to speak. We can't keep fighting like this. If we do, nothing will be left. Trust sparked in her voice, causing others to nod in agreement, their collective hesitation morphing into a burgeoning desire for peace. Look, Kyle urged, raising his voice again, this isn't just about us, it's about our kids. They're watching and learning how to deal with fear. What do we want to teach them? That conflict is the answer. Louder murmurs rolled through the crowd. People shifted, stepping back from the chaos, drawn in by the thread of connection. As Kyle felt the atmosphere begin to change, he turned to another neighbor, a school teacher named Linda, and beckoned her to stand beside him. Linda. You've taught many of our children. He called, feeling hope surge. What would you say we owe them right now? Moved by the moment, Linda stepped forward, her expression soft. We owe them a safe place to grow, the kind of community we all love. It takes courage to choose understanding over anger. Kyle could feel the tide shifting. Some fists began to lower, hesitations turned to conversations. Kyle took the opportunity. Let us meet again tomorrow. We can talk about our fears, share our struggles, and, most importantly, we can listen to one another. A young man, previously caught up in the fray, stepped forward, glancing shyly around. I don't want to fight. I just want to be heard. Yes. Kyle encouraged, excitement pulsing through him. Let us hear each other out. Let us come together as a community that cares about each other. If we're going to heal, it has to start right now. With every word, connection blossomed. Laughter slowly broke through the angry haze, igniting warmth and acceptance where there had been division. One by one, his neighbors started nodding, murmurs of agreement drifted into the night. "All right," someone shouted. "Let us do it." Kyle felt a swell of pride as Sophie grinned beside him, her trust in her father reaffirmed. The storm was still there, but they faced it together, united in hope and purpose. "Remember," Kyle called out as the crowd began to disperse, a newfound lightness in their steps, "tomorrow we'll return ready to listen, ready to heal." Sophie squeezed his hand tightly. "You did it, Dad. You helped them." Her words wrapped around his heart like a warm embrace. As the last embers of the evening faded into night, Kyle held on to the hope that tomorrow would dawn brighter for everyone in Maplewood. Together, they could reshape their community, turn whispers of fear into bonds of trust, and transform darkness into light. This was just the beginning. They had a battle ahead, but now they were armed with something stronger than anger. They had each other. As a new chapter dawned, Kyle turned to the crowd and saw not just neighbors but a family of dreams ready to build the future together, ready to reclaim the light. Now was the time for action, and he would fight for those he loved, no matter the cost. And as they walked home, he knew they were not just surviving the storm, they were rising above it. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and comment your thoughts and feelings about this ending. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation.